Well, I told you a tale in the last video. I haven't 415 this middle section yet. I think I'm going to hold on that and go ahead and make a mess. I'm going to go ahead and just do the rest of the back of the frame here all at the same time. 415 is a bit messy. So just to review, this is the old transmission cross member. It's got to go once I get the new transmission cross member fabbed, and I'd like to just leave it in here to maintain the frame geometry. So we've set the frame back upright. Sawhorses are in the correct location for us to be level. We're pretty darned level there, and then we're pretty level across here. Not quite perfect. I'll probably adjust it just a touch, but it's not a train wreck. Really what I need right now is the frame to be level horizontally, because we're going to now come back here and we're going to start cutting out a chunk of the frame, the lower flange on the frame, in order to install this piece of 1/4 inch steel, and that's going to be the first piece for our rear suspension mounting. And then also here's the front rear suspension mount bracket, which will go onto the side of the frame here somewhere like this. And then we've got an airbag. So this is basically one side. This was a full kit. This is mounting a 1997 Ford Thunderbird rear suspension in this truck, and there's great sets of plans out there for cutting these pieces and fabbing these, but I guess just due to time and convenience, maybe I'm lazy. I went ahead and bought the system complete with the spring bucket, the spring adjustment, the airbag insert to go. This will replace the old coil spring out of the rear suspension that was used previously. So this is one half, the other half is down here on the ground, and we're going to get started, and we'll start with our layout here for our first main plate installation. And it's got the main plate and gussets, also came with shock mount tabs, so it's a pretty complete system. I could have done it myself, but honestly, for the price they were asking, and buying the plate and buying the tube and doing all the weld and fab, I just felt like it was better use of my limited time to work on this thing to go ahead and buy it. So let's get started on this rear suspension install. Okay, so next steps on the rear suspension installation. A couple things have happened. One, the notch has been cut. It's been cut on both sides, but you see the notch on that side, and that's where that plate that I showed in the last segment goes. Here's the plate actually installed on the rear suspension. So that plate goes in that notch. Once I got that notch cut, I did not necessarily need the frame level anymore, so I have pulled out the sawhorses. There's one. I went ahead and put the front tires on. I packed the front wheel bearings and all those goodies, so the front ends should be pretty much complete. So I've got it now on the front tires, and I've lowered the rear of the frame, got it on a jack here, and so that way we can bring it up and down with the rear section, with the rear end under it. Don't sweat this rear end. It's going to all get pretty much torn apart with new bushings installed, cleanup of like the lower swing arm and spring bucket, that area, that'll be all redone. Hubs will come off, and I'm going to have those remanufactured to handle the 5-on-4.5 wheel pattern that the front has. This is 5-on-5, I believe, wheel pattern. These are the original Thunderbird wheels that were on the car I salvaged this out of. So then the next thing, these standoffs for the airbags had to be drilled, and so we're ready to move on. Get back with you in a minute. Well, I got a little ahead of myself on working versus making videos, but I think I showed you the cutouts in the side of the frame to mount this independent rear suspension bracket. You'll notice it's notched up here. This thing has to be notched at an angle in order to clear the end of this mount point on the rear suspension. So the rear suspension's it's bolted to this airbag's installed. The airbags bolt at the top. There's one bolt in the bottom ring down there. I'll have to put a couple more, but I need to drop this control arm, lower control arm, in order to get to it easily. Had a few problems. This thing has got, ouch, this rear suspension's got these large mount bushings, 4 of them, one here, one under this bracket, 2 on the opposite side. 2 of them are bad. The bolts were basically rusted them to the point where you couldn't get them out no matter how big a hammer or how much PB blaster you used, so I had to replace 2 of them. That's quite a chore. If you've ever replaced bushings, you know they can be a handful, but these are ridiculously. So got this new rear suspension cross member in place. It's just sitting there. It's not bolted or not welded, and again, the plate on this side over here is tacked in as well. So the rear suspension's tacked in. Now this front mounts I haven't tacked in yet. They are bolted temporarily. I've got some jack stands basically keeping the rear suspension from tilting. It's only tacked in, so it certainly isn't of the strength level it needs to be. But so where we are now, we need to do a couple things. I need to set the pinion angle. You can probably see, let me sneak under here. I need to set the pinion angle. Right now we're 1 degree positive, and the frame is pretty level, and so we could basically, I put a jack under here. You can let the front down. We could tack these in, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. I think what I'm gonna do probably is put that unit at 0, maybe 1 degree negative on the pinion angle, tack these forward mounts in that are just sitting here, and then not weld those in completely, tack them well, but not weld them out until I get the engine mounted, because then I can check the pinion angle off the drive shaft, and I think that's the better way to do it. So we'll probably tack these forward mounts in with about a 0 to -1 degree pinion angle. One thing to remember with IRS systems, your rear suspension, or rather your rear differential, doesn't move up and down like it does with a leaf suspension system. So you don't necessarily need the same amount of pinion angle, or as negative a pinion angle in an IRS system as you would in a leaf spring system, where your differential is going to move up and down. The couple things we need to do, I want to make sure, now that I'm all tacked in, I want to make sure that my front and rear suspension are square with one another. I know they're true to the frame, but I'm assuming the frame's nice and straight, and I'll be real, I don't know that. I think it is, but I don't know that. So we're going to drop a plumb line down off the center of the wheel hubs, all 4 of them. That's why the tires are off, and I've got the frame back up on sawhorses. I just want to check and drop a line to a plumb bob down to the concrete, put a mark, and then measure diagonally from rear wheel to front wheel, both sides, and see how true everything is. If everything's as true as I hope it is, then we're going to go ahead and weld out this plate, weld in these gussets, be 3 gussets to a side, and then we'll also weld in this 2-inch square bar across there to stiffen the rear of the frame even further. And so it goes. Got a few minor issues to deal with. The airbags very close to the sway bar end link, and on this side the sway bar end link's messed up, so that'll have to get replaced anyway. But hopefully we'll have room enough. This one does seem to be a bit closer than this one, so maybe some shift in it. Intention is to replace these sway arm bushings anyway, and so it may just need to be shifted over slightly. But again, I've got to get this this lower sway bar end link is bushings were tore up in it real bad, so I'm probably just going to get new end links for both sides anyway. So it sits. The old transmission cross member is still installed. We get to after we get the rear suspension in a happy place, then we'll pull that and start looking at dropping the engine and trans in. The transmission's right over there, and so we're moving on. Pretty happy with the way things are going. Things have been going slow. The holidays, work, things like that get in the way, but hopefully have some vacations starting soon, and we'll be able to finish this up. You can better see on this side. This side's got no bolts in the airbag, and so we'll jack this up. We'll align it, and then I drilled 6 holes. 3 bolts is what I plan to use, but I drilled 6 holes in the bottom of this airbag riser, and reason being that way you can rotate it 1 bolt and get less rotation on it. And so anyway, here's the other support installed, and the other front, or the rear brackets installed in the front bracket. Again, it's just held up by a jack stand and just bolted in temporarily. So that'll be the next things. Make sure we're parallel, or yeah, make sure our front and rear suspension are parallel, and then fix our pinion angle and tack in these front supports. And then when we get that done, we'll drop the IRS down to the ground, and then we'll do the weld out on these rear plates. We'll do the weld out on the front plates when we get confirmation that the pinion angle's right. It'll just be a matter of cutting out some fairly large tacks if we've got to go and adjust our pinion angle once the motor and transmission's in place. So it's manageable. Anyway, I'll check back with you on the next video, and we'll just wrap this one here. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.